Good evening, YouTube, and welcome to the Altar of Ultimate Darkness in Total War Warhammer 2. Yes, that's the name of the map, and it's actually a really cool name, and a really cool looking map, I might add. This is going to be a 2v2, and we're going to have lizardmen teamed up with stunties. It's always a good time whenever you got lizards joined together with small, iron-clad, bearded dwarves who have sworn oaths to destroy everything that has begrudged them. So let's take a look at the armies. We've got the Lizardmen army here. I'll call it out first. They've got Krokgar as the leader, and then we're going to have a Pop Hapak cohort here. That's a Cold One Spear Rider Regiment of Renowned, which is going to be an interesting unit to have here. They've also got the cohort of Sotek Red-Crested Skinks. I apologize, folks. It's not really a tongue twister. That's just me. Up front, there are one Saurus warrior and then two Temple Guards, one of which is the Star Chamber Guardians. There's another Saurus warrior over here on the flank, and then towards the back, there's that ancient salamander you all saw, a skink cohort, and another there as well. And then as for the dwarves, they are led by a dwarf lord, just a standard lord there, and he's going to have a few miners with blasting charges up front. Great way to break up charges and enemy infantry. A second line of dwarf warriors, and then there are a couple of dwarf warriors with great weapons. Over here we've got a rangers, and then a vanguard deployed. There was another ranger. There's the peak gate guard hammerers, as well as one more other hammerer, and then two slayers, and a grudge thrower, along with a cannon. So the dwarves have a huge number of units. The sneaky greenskins, led by Wurzag, do have some vanguard deployed units. They have the Moon Howlers, and then some Night Goblins, and over here a couple of Nasty Skulkers, three of them in fact. Don't forget that the Nasty Skulkers have a Smoke Bomb ability, which causes a massive slowdown to enemy units within the short radius, or the very small radius that it has, but it's quite effective at slowing down cavalry charges and other stuff close to them. There are Night Goblin Archers, Rusty Airs, a couple of Gobbo Spearmen up front, some Orc Boys, as kind of a main line, and then we got Wurzag, and he has Brain Bursta, Foot of Gork, and Gaze of Mork, and then we've got the Goblin Big Boss on his Spider. And then in terms of the rest of the Greenskin army in the back line, there is 3 Savage Orc Biggins, so a ton of infantry for the Greenskins, and then the Skaven are rocking a crap load of clan rats. Nothing surprising there, right? See at least 4 clan rats, a couple with spear, make that probably more like 3 or 4 with spears. And then in the back, he's got the Clan Vulcan Tail Slashers. This is a clan rat with shield that does flaming attacks. And then a Storm Vermin with sword and shield, 2 of those. And then in the very back, we've got some Plague Monk Censer Bearers along with Blight Scab's Plague Pack, which is going to be the Regiment Renowned version. Guys are pretty sweet units. And then there's a couple of Deathglow Bombardiers, an interesting pick in a world of Jezzails and Rattling Guns. And we do have the Warplock Master here, which is Ikit Claw. And then we're going to have the Teeth Breakers Rattling Gun weapon team here. They probably should have been the Beard Breakers for this particular battle. But let's see how it plays out. So a lot heavier on infantry and less skirmish. But I mean, if you look at this map, the having to get up here on top with the hill, there is quite a bit of open room here to use those Jezzails from if they had wanted to. Now the Night Gobbo arrows over here are going to make short work of the Rangers. Those guys do have a shield, but very little armor, and they're going to get torn apart by those couple of Night Gobbos. You can see that the Lizardmen and the Dwarves probably wanting to move forward a little bit so that their cannon can be slightly more useful. Their Grudge Thrower should be okay, and Wurzag, speaking of cannon, Wurzag just took a shot to the face, and the Night Gobbo, yes. Wow, man, he was sitting right in the middle of that campfire. The Goblin Big Boss taking a bit of punishment, and Wurzag is immediately forced to pull back. We're going to see the Ancient Salamander come up here and start ripping into some of these goblins. He'll probably pull back and start coughing up his flaming hairballs. I like that the Greenskins have used Wah here in enough advance for them to charge. Probably should have waited a little closer to their targets, and then they should have also made sure that Skaven were ready to take advantage of it, because it is map wide. And with Wurzag, it only recharges when you're in melee, and that's kind of a rough deal. So I like that they used it before the charge, but that was too much before the charge. And so you're going to lose a lot of that time there, where you really ideally want to use it right before a major charge and then let it sink in afterwards. So Wah is now out of effect, probably mostly wasted. The Rattling Gun team has moved up and has opened fire on some Dwarf Warriors. They are fairly well shielded, but they will take some damage there. Ikat Claw has also taken some damage, but drops a very nice Brass Orb there. He got a Brass Orb in previously, and then dropped another hit on the Star Chamber Guardians, but Croak took a dump all over these Orc boys over here, and so they have been broken. And Croak, I forgot to mention earlier, by the way, here's Croak, and he's got a few of his infantry busting spells. When you see Croak on the battlefield, do not overlap your units. And even if you don't overlap your units, kiss your elite units goodbye, because he will absolutely wreck them, and he is mostly immune to ranged missile fire. Over here, the Goblin Skulkers are making their way in, and the Clan Rats are trying to get around to flank too. They are going to be up against the Peak Gate Guard. And it's not often you get to see really cool elite infantry like the Peak Gate Guard. These guys will absolutely put a beating down on these cheap infantry here, but you end up investing a whole lot. You see Croak over there again taking a dump on some of the infantry. And let's watch these Peak Gate Guard. Ikat Claw is right back here. More Hammerers over here. So yeah, the Gate Guard have already racked up 32 kills. It's one of the few Dwarf units that actually has a little bit of offense, but this is exactly why I typically don't like bringing the Peak Gate Guard. It's because they just become a target. That was a Warp Lightning combined with a Brass Orb, and it is going to brutalize the Peak Gate Guard. They will still do okay against all this low-tier infantry over here, but you can see how easy it is to turn the tables on such an expensive unit. The Skaven front line, along with the Greenskins, has clashed here. You've got the Blight Scabs pack here, and that Salamander, you saw right there, just dumping a huge flaming bomb in the middle of that fight. Ancient Salamander, such a cool unit. Here comes another flaming hairball. I would say hairball, I'm just joking because it's kind of like a cat, right? I know they don't have hair. But in any case, Croak is going to put his protection up here, which is going to grant some pretty serious damage resistance at 44%. And you can see he dropped his spell right at the same time, so it's going to be a double dose. Salamander, resistance, spell, but it wasn't enough. But it did do terrible damage to the Blight Scab Plague Pack. Salamander now taking shots from that the skirmish line back here. You can see the Deathglobe Bombardiers trying to work in there as well. The skirmishers taking some hits from the cannon and the Grudge Thrower. The Grudge Thrower quite good at putting damage on those types of units from range. I would think a Grudge Thrower would actually be pretty dang good against Jezzails, as long as they could use the extra range. There was a Brain Bursta. Brain Bursta, not a super effective spell. Look at these shots off of the Salamander. So clutch. 133 kills on that Salamander. Krokgar is now running all over the place, and these low-tier Clan Rats and Gobbo infantry are going to struggle mightily in the presence of a big dinosaur like that. And even though they took a beating early on, the Peak Gate Guard has shown their extreme superiority complex over these cheap Skaven Rats, including the ones with their fancy flaming swords, as they're going to be no match for the Gate Guards. And you can see the Pop cohort moving around the flank, probably hoping to get into that juicy skirmish line that's back here getting shot up. And despite the best efforts, the Lizardmen and the Dwarves were able to hold the back lines together. Their front has kind of collapsed, and unfortunately for them, they lost the Salamander there too. I'm not sure exactly what caused it to rat. It could have been the Gobbo Big Boss. And then Croak gets caught out here. This is not the ideal place for a big undead toad to be. He's kind of slow, and he's not going to like getting fought by all these different greenskins. So he's going to take a lot of damage. He does get some help from a skink cohort, but he's going to need a heck of a lot more than that. He used a spell, but it was mistimed, so Croak was not able to drop any severe damage, even though there was quite a few units around with good shots. Maybe it was a misclick, or just a poor click at that point. And Croak is in some very, very serious trouble here. Brain Bursta, I think, was intended for the Dwarves, but it still did quite a bit of damage, and right at the last second, Croak does get a shield off, and one of his spells there, and so he is able to drop a considerable amount of damage. and make the Greenskins pay for that heavy assault against him, though the Gobbo Big Boss is likely to finish him off if that continues. And then the Blight Scab's Plague Pack still picking away here. Not actually a terribly large number of kills, and I wouldn't expect that they will against Hammerers. They have very low armor. And Hammerers are very well armored. Look at this one, 251 kills on that Hammerer. When you don't have the right, I mean, like, you saw the Brass Orb and the other stuff doing some serious work, but if you run out of that stuff, that is one of those few times when Hammerers are just going to be gruesome. If you don't have the mass to charge them down, like with cavalry or monsters, and these guys just end up in an infantry fight, it's going to be rough. They are a very effective unit. But part of the reason you don't see them picked very much is because it's so easy to get them with missile fire, cavalry, or monsters. In this case, the Skaven and the Greenskins didn't have a lot of that. What little they did have, they used, and it was pretty effective at draining some hit points, but it's not enough to take them out of the fight. And again, against those low-tier infantry, Hammerers will just grind for days. Look at that, 191 on the Peak Gate Guard, but they were even outdone by their non-Regiment of Renowned brothers. But I guess both of these two combined for some serious kills with the Reptile King Verity Babsnack. It's an interesting name for the Lizardmen. I was just used to seeing Reptile's name next to the Lizardmen, so it kind of threw me off for a minute. But anyway, here's his army. Good kills all around, actually, for the Dwarf army. I think it was a good battle for Reptile King there, and then for the Lizards. Look at the Salamander, man. This guy was wrecking, and then Croak pulled out a whole lot of kills, too. This guy is just devastating to blobs of infantry. And for Des Cerealis here, in his Skaven, an interesting Skaven pick. Not what I would pick, per se. I think that these Storm Vermin there don't do you a whole lot of good against either one of the two targets that you're coming up against. I definitely would have taken more skirmish power as the Skaven, especially knowing that Dawi are on the other side. I would have wanted Jezzails and possibly a Warp Lightning Cannon as well. And more Doom Flayers, man. Doom Flayers are just a priceless investment for the Skaven. They are very, very good in multiple situations, especially up against armored infantry. So always a solid pick against Dwarves. And that's for Ice Storm here, going with this infantry heavy build, which can work out well, especially when you're supporting a faction like the Skaven, right? They need some decent infantry to help back them up, but this particular build from the Greenskin was actually built on a lot of cheap infantry here with 5 of these boys, 3 Savage Biggins and the Skulkers, but obviously this army was meant to surround, get around the flanks, and cause a lot of trouble, which they did attempt to do. They just could not break through the Dwarf flanking units, and that is always a risk when you're bringing in lower tier Gobbo type units. If the Dwarves put a decently sturdy unit on the flank, they will shut down that attempt. The Skulkers can sometimes do it if they're properly supported, but not every time. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed this 2v2. I don't want you all thinking that because Three Kingdoms is out that I won't be paying attention to Warhammer. That's absolutely not the case. They're two kind of different games as it is, right? Normally when a Total War game, like for instance when Warhammer 2 comes out, it'll probably trump over the top of Warhammer 1, right? Because it's a sequel, and that's a very clear thing. I would just move on to Warhammer 2. Whenever Thrones of Britannia came out, again, it's a different kind of game. It never really had the potential to pull me out of Warhammer, and I just didn't play it much anyway. Well, here we are at Three Kingdoms. Three Kingdoms is very fun, but it's not going to pull me permanently away from Warhammer, and I see that this game is going to remain solidly on my channel until we have a Warhammer 3, so don't worry about it if your deal is Warhammer. Yes, I may cover Three Kingdoms a little heavier here while it's fresh at launch, depending on what people want to see, but Warhammer's not going away, folks. Hope you all enjoyed it. HeirofCarthage signing out, and I will see you soon with some more Total War Warhammer 2 action and other games as well, so hang in there.